First Contact and the Fall. The holographic display flickered in the dim light of the bridge as Commander Sarah Chen studied the approaching signatures. 27 vessels, each larger than anything humanity had ever constructed, dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Procyon colony system. Their sleek, crystalline designs reflected the distant starlight like faceted diamonds, beautiful, but utterly alien. "All stations, battle positions," Chen ordered, her voice steady despite the growing knot in her stomach. The defense fleet of Procyon consisted of just 4 destroyers and her flagship, the UES Vigilant. 5 ships against 27. Those weren't odds anyone wanted to face during first contact. The unknown vessels arranged themselves in a perfect geometric formation that seemed to defy conventional tactical doctrine. No wasted movement, no sign of hesitation, just mathematical precision that spoke of either extensive automation or a level of coordination humanity hadn't achieved. Opening hailing frequencies on all known channels, Commander, Lieutenant Park reported from the communications station. Broadcasting First Contact Protocol Alpha. The response came not through their communications systems, but as a system-wide quantum data burst that overwhelmed every computer network in the colony. Screens flickered, navigation systems crashed, and weapon targeting computers went dark. Through the chaos, a single message appeared. "Your technological inferiority has been noted. The Nexary Empire claims this system. Surrender or be eliminated." Chen's hands tightened on the command rail as she watched her fleet systems trying to reboot. Status report. "Main computer is completely locked up," her XO reported. "Weapons, navigation, shields, everything's dead. They hit us with some kind of quantum virus we've never seen before." "Switch to analog backups," Chen ordered, but she already knew it was too late. The alien ships were moving with that same precise coordination, spreading out to surround her small fleet. The first shots came like streams of liquid light, beautiful in their destructive power. 2 of her destroyers vanished in expanding clouds of plasma and debris before their crews could even react. The third managed to fire a single railgun round, primitive by the standards of their energy weapons, before joining its sisters in destruction. But that single railgun shot did something unexpected. It struck one of the smaller Nexary vessels, and for just a moment, their perfect formation wavered. The alien ship's crystalline surface cracked, and its movements became erratic before its companions destroyed the 4th destroyer. "All hands, abandon ship," Chen ordered, her voice tight with controlled fury. "Get to the escape pods and head for the colony. We'll regroup on the surface." She turned to her XO. "Did you see what I saw?" He nodded grimly. "That railgun round. Their shields didn't stop it. Something about physical projectiles." "Get that information to Fleet Command," Chen said as they headed for the escape pods. "If we survive this, they need to know that all our fancy energy weapons and computer systems might be useless, but maybe, just maybe, we've got something else that could work." As her escape pod launched from the dying Vigilant, Chen watched the Nexary ships begin their systematic bombardment of Procyon's orbital infrastructure. Their energy weapons carved through the colony's most advanced defensive systems like they weren't even there. But her mind was already racing ahead, thinking about the vast mothball yards where humanity's obsolete warships sat waiting, ships that relied more on steel and gunnery than quantum computers and energy weapons. Sometimes, she thought as her pod streaked toward the surface, the old ways might just be exactly what you need to face the future. The fall of Procyon took less than 6 hours. But in those 6 hours, humanity learned 2 crucial lessons: they were no longer alone in the universe, and their most advanced technology was worse than useless against the Nexary. But they had also discovered something else, a potential weakness that might just give them a fighting chance. As Chen organized the evacuation of surviving colonists into the deep bunkers beneath Procyon's surface, she began drafting a message to Fleet Command. It would take weeks to reach Earth through the backup quantum relay network, but its contents might change the course of the war to come. Request immediate reactivation of all mothballed warships, particularly those with minimal computer automation. The enemy can defeat our advanced systems, but they seem vulnerable to primitive kinetic weapons. Recommend Operation Ghost Fleet be implemented immediately. The older the ships, the better. Sometimes the best way forward is to step backward. The message would take 3 weeks to reach Earth. By then, 3 more colony systems would fall to the Nexary. But in those ancient shipyards where humanity's obsolete vessels slumbered, a new hope was about to awaken, one that would teach the Nexary that underestimating humanity's ability to adapt would be their greatest mistake. The Ghost Fleet. Admiral Marcus Zhang stood in the vast ship-breaking yards of Titan, his breath frosting in the cold methane atmosphere as he stared up at what might be humanity's last hope. The UES Constitution loomed before him, her hull still bearing the scars of battles fought decades ago. She was huge, one of the last analog dreadnoughts built before quantum computers and energy weapons became standard. Most importantly, she was simple. The reactor's original containment seals are still good, Chief Engineer Diana Rodriguez reported, her voice crackling over the ancient radio comm system they'd been forced to use. We can have her powered up within 72 hours. The real challenge will be finding crew who can operate her. Zhang nodded, watching teams of workers swarming over other mothballed vessels in the yard. Similar scenes were playing out across the solar system as humanity rushed to resurrect its obsolete fleet. The Nexary had already taken 6 outer colony systems, but their advance had slowed, giving Earth precious time to prepare. How many can actually handle manual fire control systems? Zhang asked, running his gloved hand along the Constitution's titanium hull plating. We've got an entire generation of officers trained on quantum targeting computers. That's where Commander Chen comes in, Rodriguez replied, gesturing toward a nearby training facility. Inside, Sarah Chen stood before a group of young officers, a manual firing solution computer, little more than a sophisticated mechanical calculator, spread out on the table before them. Forget everything you learned about quantum targeting, Chen was saying as Zhang entered. These are Mark 7 ballistic computers. They can't be hacked because there's nothing to hack. Just gears, springs, and human operators who know how to use them. One of the officers raised his hand. Commander, the Nexary ships can perform 15-dimensional spacetime maneuvers. How can we possibly hit them with something this primitive? Chen smiled. Because they don't expect us to try. Their shields are optimized against energy weapons and their ECM is designed to corrupt targeting computers. But they've never faced ships that aim by hand and fire solid shells. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. In the 3 weeks since her escape from Procyon, Chen had become the expert on Nexary vulnerabilities. Her observation about their weakness to kinetic weapons had been proven correct in subsequent encounters. Small resistance groups using centuries-old rifle technology had managed to damage Nexary ground forces when modern plasma weapons proved useless. We've got 12 ships nearly ready, Rodriguez reported as they left the training facility. Constitution will be our flagship. The rest are a mix of heavy cruisers and destroyers, all pre-quantum age. Nothing newer than 50 years old. What about ammunition? Zhang asked. Every fabrication facility in the system is running at full capacity, producing shells rather than energy cells. We're even reactivating old tungsten mines on Mercury. The Nexary won't expect to face depleted uranium rounds. Zhang nodded, looking back at the Constitution. Her massive railgun turrets were being restored, each capable of accelerating a 2-ton shell to a significant fraction of light speed. No energy shields had been designed to stop that kind of kinetic impact. Time estimate until the fleet is combat ready? 2 weeks for basic operations, Rodriguez replied. A month to be truly effective. The question is whether Earth has that long. The answer came sooner than anyone expected. Long-range sensors detected a Nexary fleet, larger than any seen before, entering the Kuiper belt. They would reach Earth in less than 3 weeks. Launch what we have, Zhang ordered. Commander Chen, you'll captain the Constitution. We need your experience with their tactics. The next 18 days were a blur of frantic preparation. Ships were launched with crews still learning their systems. Ancient missile magazines were filled with hastily manufactured warheads. Officers who had never seen mechanical fire control systems struggled to master them under Chen's relentless training. The Ghost Fleet, as it came to be known, assembled in the orbit of Jupiter. 16 ships in total, a pitiful force compared to the hundreds humanity had lost to the Nexary, but these vessels were different. They represented not humanity's advancement, but its ability to adapt, to find strength in the very technology their enemies considered obsolete. As Chen stood on Constitution's bridge, surrounded by analog gauges and mechanical controls that would have seemed archaic months ago, she felt a strange confidence. The ship hummed with power that came not from quantum reactors but from good old-fashioned nuclear fusion. Her weapons were simple physics, mass times acceleration equals force. Signal from Admiral Zhang, her communications officer reported, using a simple radio frequency that was virtually undetectable among the natural emissions of space. The Nexary fleet has passed Saturn's orbit. 217 ships confirmed. Chen looked at her crew, young officers trained on technology centuries more advanced than what they now operated, who had learned to rely on their own skills rather than artificial assistance. They looked back with a mix of fear and determination. Send to all ships, she ordered. Operation Throwback begins in 6 hours. Remind all crews, no quantum communications, no energy weapons. We fight this battle the old way, with steel and grit and human ingenuity. As the Ghost Fleet began its burn toward the approaching enemy, Chen remembered something her grandfather, a history professor, once told her: the most dangerous opponent isn't the one with the best technology, but the one who can make the best use of whatever technology they have. The Nexary were about to learn that lesson the hard way. Operation Throwback. The void between Saturn and Jupiter became a battlefield unlike any in human history. Commander Chen watched from Constitution's analog bridge as the massive Nexary fleet approached, their crystalline ships forming intricate geometric patterns that seemed to defy basic tactics. All ships maintain radio silence, Chen ordered through the hardline communications system. Remember your training. No electronic emissions, no energy weapons. Let them think we're as dead as the other mothballed ships until we're right on top of them. The Ghost Fleet drifted, running dark, their ancient nuclear reactors carefully shielded. To any modern sensors, they would appear as nothing more than space debris, derelict hulks left over from humanity's earlier attempts at space warfare. That was exactly what Chen was counting on. Range to target, she asked. 300,000 kilometers and closing, her fire control officer reported, working the mechanical ballistic computer with practiced efficiency. They're maintaining their standard approach pattern. Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Nexary were creatures of habit, their tactics as precise and predictable as their technology was advanced. They had never needed to adapt because, until now, they had never faced an enemy that could challenge them. All ships, execute pattern break on my mark, Chen ordered. Remember, we get one shot at surprising them. Make it count. The Nexary fleet grew larger in their viewing ports. Actual glass and steel ports, not the holographic displays that had proven so vulnerable to their quantum warfare. Chen watched as the enemy ships began their standard deployment, spreading out to envelop what they must have assumed was another helpless human colony. Mark. 16 ancient warships suddenly roared to life. Nuclear reactors surged to full power, and massive engines that relied on simple fusion thrust rather than exotic quantum drives pushed the vessels into attack formation. The Ghost Fleet appeared like vengeful spirits from humanity's past, charging straight into the heart of the Nexary formation. Target the nearest cruiser analog, Chen ordered. All tubes, fire when ready. Constitution's main guns, massive railgun batteries that ran the length of her hull, spoke for the first time in decades. There was no energy beam, no quantum-guided projectile. Just 2 tons of depleted uranium, accelerated to relativistic speeds by electromagnetic forces that even the Nexary couldn't jam. The effect was devastating. The enemy ship's advanced shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, might as well have been tissue paper against the kinetic impact. The round punched through their crystalline hull like a bullet through glass, emerging from the other side in a spray of debris and atmosphere. "Direct hit," her fire control officer shouted. Enemy vessel showing significant damage. Around them, the rest of the Ghost fleet opened fire. Railguns thundered in the void, launching salvos of solid metal at targets that had never needed to defend against such primitive weapons. Conventional missiles, their guidance systems purely mechanical, slipped through sophisticated electronic countermeasures as if they weren't there. The Nexary response was predictable. They attempted to engage their standard combat protocols, firing quantum data bursts meant to disable enemy computer systems. But there were no computers to disable, no networks to corrupt. The Ghost fleet operated on principles as old as warfare itself: see target, aim weapon, fire weapon. "They're trying to regroup," Chen's tactical officer reported. "Their formation is breaking down." "Push the advantage," Chen ordered. "All ships, close to point-blank range. They won't expect us to get that close." The Constitution led the charge, her ancient engines straining as she accelerated toward the enemy fleet. The Nexary, for perhaps the first time in their history, showed signs of confusion. Their perfect formations began to scatter as they tried to deal with an enemy that wasn't fighting according to any tactical doctrine they understood. Multiple enemy ships attempting to launch fighter craft, someone reported. "Let them," Chen replied. "Their fighters are designed for energy weapon dogfights. They've never dealt with flak clouds." As if to emphasize her point, Constitution's secondary batteries began firing, filling space with clouds of supersonic metal fragments. The emerging Nexary fighters, beautiful crystalline craft built for high-speed energy weapon duels, flew straight into walls of simple metal shrapnel. Their shields flickered and died, their hulls shattering under impacts their designers had never considered possible. The battle raged for hours, a stark contrast between the most advanced technology in known space and weapons that would have been familiar to naval commanders centuries ago. The Ghost fleet took losses, 3 ships destroyed, 2 more crippled, but they inflicted far worse on the enemy. For every human vessel lost, 5 Nexary ships were destroyed or forced to retreat, their sophisticated systems unable to cope with humanity's primitive onslaught. "Enemy fleet is breaking formation," Chen's tactical officer reported with barely contained excitement. "They're retreating." Chen watched as the surviving Nexary vessels, their perfect geometric patterns shattered, began emergency FTL jumps away from the battlefield. They left behind dozens of their ships, reduced to fields of crystalline debris by humanity's resurrected weapons of war. "Send to Admiral Zhang," Chen ordered, allowing herself to relax slightly in her command chair. Operation Throwback successful. Enemy force routed with significant losses. Request permission to pursue. The response came back quickly, negative on pursuit. Return to Earth. Your data on enemy vulnerabilities has been analyzed. Operation Throwback was just the beginning. Well done, Commander. As the Ghost fleet regrouped and began their journey back to Earth, Chen looked at the debris field they'd created. The Nexary had thought humanity primitive, had assumed their superior technology made victory inevitable. Instead, they'd learned a lesson that humans had known for centuries: it's not the sophistication of your weapons that matters, but your ability to use what you have effectively. The war was far from over, but humanity had found its edge. Sometimes, Chen thought, the future belongs to those who remember the lessons of the past. The human element. For months after Operation Throwback's success, Commander Chen found herself standing in a captured Nexary vessel, surrounded by technology that should have been centuries beyond human understanding. The crystalline corridors hummed with quantum energies, and every surface seemed alive with computational power. Yet the ship had fallen to a boarding party armed with shotguns and magnetic grapples. "It's almost beautiful in its complexity," Engineer Rodriguez said, running a mechanical sensor over a navigation console. "And that's exactly why it failed. There's no redundancy, no backup systems. They never thought they'd need them." The capture of the Nexary cruiser, Crystal Ascendant, as the human crews had dubbed it, marked a turning point in the war. Not because of its technology, most of which was useless to human operators, but because of what it revealed about their enemy's fundamental weakness. "Show me what you found in their tactical database," Chen ordered, following Rodriguez to what appeared to be the ship's command center. The engineer pulled out a simple notebook, paper and pencil, immune to any quantum interference, and began sketching. "Every decision, every maneuver, every response, it's all algorithmic. Their ships don't have crews like we think of them. They're more like distributed AI nodes. Perfect efficiency, perfect coordination. And perfect predictability," Chen finished. "That's why they couldn't adapt when we threw something unexpected at them." The discovery had led to a radical shift in human strategy. While the Ghost Fleet continued to engage Nexary forces with their primitive weapons, smaller human units began employing increasingly unconventional tactics. Civilian mining ships, their hulls reinforced with simple steel plating, would appear to be fleeing only to scatter clouds of industrial diamonds into the paths of pursuing Nexary vessels. The crystalline ships, their shields tuned for energy weapons, would suffer catastrophic damage from impacts with their own element. "Admiral Zhang's report just came in," Chen's XO announced, entering the command center with a physical printout. "The Arcturus Gambit worked. They fell for the same trick again." Chen smiled. The Arcturus Gambit had been beautifully simple, a dozen Ghost Fleet ships apparently retreating from superior Nexary forces, leaving behind what appeared to be disabled vessels. The Nexary, following their perfect tactical algorithms, moved in to destroy the helpless prey. They never considered that humans would deliberately scuttle their own ships, turning them into massive kinetic bombs that detonated when the enemy reached optimal range. "How many ships did we lose?" she asked. 8 decommissioned hulls, all stripped of valuable equipment beforehand. Enemy losses estimated at 27 capital ships. Rodriguez whistled. "They still haven't figured out that we're using their predictability against them." "They can't," Chen replied, running her hand along a crystalline wall. "Their entire civilization is built on the idea of perfect efficiency through automation. The concept of deliberate inefficiency, of sacrificing resources for tactical advantage, it's completely alien to them." The war had become a contest between machine perfection and human unpredictability. While the Nexary ships could execute complex maneuvers with flawless precision, human crews were learning to fight dirty. They'd fire railgun shells filled with scrap metal, creating expanding clouds of debris that would shred enemy vessels. They'd use old-fashioned radio signals to coordinate attacks, knowing the Nexary would dismiss such transmissions as background noise. "Latest intelligence suggests they're trying to adapt," the XO reported. "They're attempting to analyze our tactics, to create new algorithms to counter them." "But that's their weakness," Chen said. "They're trying to create perfect responses to imperfect strategies. They don't understand that our strength lies in our inconsistency." She remembered a battle 2 weeks ago, when a young destroyer captain had improvised a new tactic in the middle of combat. Instead of firing his railguns directly at the enemy, he'd launched shells on seemingly random trajectories, creating a chaotic field of orbital debris that forced the Nexary to either retreat or risk destruction. No tactical algorithm could have predicted that because no rational military doctrine would have suggested it. "We're getting reports from the outer colonies," Rodriguez added. "The resistance groups are having similar success. The Nexary ground forces can't handle guerrilla tactics. They expect enemies to either mass for conventional battle or surrender." Chen nodded. "Have we finished analyzing their command and control systems?" "Yes," Rodriguez replied, pulling out another notebook. "It's fascinating. Their entire fleet operates like a single organism. Perfect coordination, but if we can disrupt that coordination, they'll be unable to function effectively, Chen finished. What about the resonance weapon? Rodriguez grinned. First tests are promising. It turns out their crystalline technology isn't just aesthetic, it's fundamental to how their ships work. And crystals have natural frequencies. Chen studied the captured ship's command center one last time before heading back to Constitution. Tomorrow, they would begin Operation Dissonance, humanity's first major offensive to retake the outer colonies. The plan violated every principle of conventional space warfare, which was exactly why Chen thought it would work. As she watched her crew prepare for battle, loading shells into ancient guns, calculating firing solutions with mechanical computers, plotting courses with paper charts, Chen realized that humanity's greatest weapon had never been its technology. It was their ability to think creatively, to adapt, to embrace chaos when necessary. The Nexari had built an empire on the principle of perfect order. They were about to learn that sometimes, the most powerful force in the universe is the human capacity for creative disorder. Victory through simplicity. The Sol System's Oort cloud blazed with the light of 1,000 suns as Operation Dissonance entered its final phase. Commander Chen, now Admiral Chen after the losses at Arcturus, stood on Constitution's bridge watching humanity's greatest gambit unfold. All Ghost Fleet elements report ready, her tactical officer announced. Resonance devices are charged and synchronized. Before them, the largest Nexari fleet ever encountered hung in space like a constellation of crystal stars. 300 capital ships had come to crush humanity's resistance once and for all. Their formation was perfect, their coordination flawless, and that would be their undoing. Begin transmission, Chen ordered. All frequencies, maximum power. Deep within the Ghost Fleet's ships, devices that would have seemed primitive to the Nexari hummed to life. They weren't quantum computers or energy weapons, but simple oscillators, tuned to the exact resonant frequency of the crystalline technology that powered the enemy fleet. The effect was subtle at first. The Nexari ship's perfect formation wavered slightly as their systems tried to compensate for unexpected vibrations. Their quantum communications networks, transmitted through crystalline pathways, began to show microscopic disruptions. They're responding exactly as predicted, Rodriguez reported from her engineering station. Their systems are trying to dampen the vibrations by synchronizing their crystal matrices. Chen allowed herself a grim smile. And in doing so, they're making themselves even more vulnerable to resonant frequencies. Begin Phase 2. The Ghost Fleet's ships, arranged in a seemingly haphazard pattern, suddenly fired their maneuvering thrusters. To the Nexari's tactical computers, it must have appeared random, inefficient, exactly the kind of human chaos they had come to expect. But there was purpose in this madness. As the fleet moved, the resonance waves from their oscillators began to intersect, creating standing waves in space. The Nexari ships, their crystalline structures already vibrating in sympathy, found themselves caught in overlapping fields of destructive resonance. First breaks appearing in enemy formation, Tactical reported. Multiple ships showing signs of crystal matrix destabilization. The Nexari responded with their usual perfect coordination, their ships moving in unison to escape the resonance fields. But that movement only brought them into new overlapping zones, carefully calculated by human mathematicians using nothing more complex than slide rules and mechanical calculators. They're trying to adapt their shields, Rodriguez called out. Switching to quantum harmonics to block the resonance. Execute pattern Omega, Chen ordered. All ships, fire main batteries. The Ghost Fleet's railguns spoke as one, launching not their usual kinetic rounds, but specially designed shells that shattered on impact. Each explosion released clouds of precisely tuned crystalline dust, the remnants of previously destroyed Nexari ships, now turned into weapons against their former masters. The effect was catastrophic. The enemy ships' attempts to block the resonance frequencies only made them more susceptible to their own recycled technology. Crystal structures began to shatter, quantum pathways collapsed, and the perfect coordination that had made the Nexary seemingly invincible became their greatest vulnerability. Enemy fleet showing critical destabilization, Tactical reported, unable to keep the awe from his voice. Their command and control network is collapsing. Chen watched as the mighty Nexary armada began to break apart, not just tactically, but literally. Ships fractured along crystal planes, their sophisticated technology undone by simple harmonic principles that had been understood by human scientists centuries ago. Receiving transmission from the enemy flagship, communications reported. They're requesting parley. The bridge fell silent. In all the months of war, the Nexary had never attempted to communicate directly with human forces. Their belief in their technological superiority had made such interaction beneath them. Put it through, Chen ordered. Audio only. The voice that came through Constitution speakers was synthetic, a translation of the Nexary's quantum-based communication. But its message was clear. You have achieved what we thought impossible. Our analysis indicated your species was technologically inferior, incapable of presenting a serious threat. We were wrong. We request cessation of hostilities to discuss terms. Chen looked around her bridge, at the mechanical gauges, the analog controls, the paper charts and manual calculators. Everything the Nexary had dismissed as primitive had proved to be their undoing. Transmit response, she ordered. The terms are simple: withdraw from all human colonies, respect our sovereignty, and understand this: technology alone does not determine superiority. It's how you use what you have that matters. As the remnants of the Nexary fleet retreated, leaving behind a graveyard of shattered crystal ships, Chen thought about how the war had been won. Not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through human creativity, adaptability, and the willingness to embrace solutions that seemed, on the surface, to be steps backward. Send to Earth Command, she ordered. Operation Dissonance successful. Enemy fleet neutralized. The war is over. Her crew cheered, but Chen was already thinking ahead. Humanity had learned valuable lessons from this conflict, about the dangers of over-reliance on technology, about the importance of maintaining fundamental skills, about the strength found in adaptability rather than perfection. What now, Admiral? Her XO asked as the Ghost Fleet began its victory formation. Chen smiled, touching the old-fashioned compass that had served as her backup navigation tool throughout the war. Now we remember these lessons. We'll advance our technology, but we'll never forget that our greatest strength lies not in the sophistication of our tools, but in the ingenuity of those who use them. The Ghost Fleet turned toward Earth, their ancient engines burning bright against the darkness. They had faced an enemy that represented the pinnacle of technological achievement and had prevailed using tools their ancestors would have recognized. It was, Chen reflected, perhaps the most human victory imaginable. The stars seemed brighter somehow as they headed home, as if the universe itself acknowledged that humanity had earned its place among them, not through perfect technology, but through the perfectly human traits of adaptability, creativity, and the courage to challenge conventional wisdom. The war was over, but humanity's journey was just beginning.